Smart Sam saves $300 a month for his entire career in a low-cost index fund and never touches it. That is the baseline. One saver, one fund, one contribution amount, 30 years of patience, and one question. At what point does the market start doing more work than he does? The answer is the reason half the people watching this video will quit investing before the math ever gets a chance to reward them. And the other half will pretend they understood it the whole time. My name is Kay, and today we are going to run every number on a napkin until compounding stops sounding like a motivational poster and starts looking like the spreadsheet it actually is. Let us start with the number that makes new investors want to throw their laptops across the room. Smart Sam is 28. He works in operations at a mid-sized company. His take-home pay after taxes is about $58,000 a year. After rent, groceries, his car payment, and his phone bill, he has roughly $400 of breathing room each month. He decides to put $300 of that into a broad market index fund every single month. Same fund, same amount, no market timing, no stock picking, no checking Reddit at 2 in the morning to see if he should pivot into semiconductor stocks. He picks the boring option on purpose. A low-cost total market index fund earning roughly 7% real return after inflation, which is approximately what the S&P 500 has delivered historically over long stretches. And he commits to 30 years. Not because he read a book about it, not because some financial guru on the internet told him to. He ran the math himself on a spreadsheet one Saturday morning and decided to trust the numbers over his feelings. That decision, that single boring Saturday morning spreadsheet, is going to be worth more than every financial decision Broke Brian makes for the rest of his life combined. Now here is where it gets uncomfortable. By the end of year 1, Smart Sam has contributed $3,600 of his own paychecks into this account. The market, in its infinite generosity, has added $118 on top. His total balance sits at about $3,718. $118. That is what 12 straight months of disciplined saving produced from the market side. That is less than a decent pair of running shoes. That is the annual return of a vending machine, not a retirement strategy. And this is the exact moment where Broke Brian closes his brokerage app and never opens it again. Because Broke Brian did the same thing. He set up the same $300 automatic transfer. He picked a similar fund. He even felt proud of himself for the first 3 months. He told his coworkers about it. He downloaded a second brokerage app just to cross-reference the numbers. He was, for a brief and shining window, a financial adult. But when the first year-end statement arrived showing $118 of growth, he did the math in his head and said, "I could have made more selling my old sneakers on the internet." And he is not wrong about the sneakers, but he is catastrophically wrong about the trajectory. Broke Brian looked at 1 year of data and drew a 30-year conclusion. That is like tasting the flour and deciding the cake is terrible. See, here is what Broke Brian does not understand, and what Smart Sam will not fully understand for another decade. The market return is a percentage, not a dollar amount, and when the balance is small, the percentage produces small dollars. 7% of 3,000 is about $210. 7% of 50,000 is 3,500. 7% of 250,000 is 17,500. Same percentage, same market, same patient saver. Wildly different dollar outcomes. The only variable that changed is the size of the pile the percentage is working on. And in year 1, the pile is tiny, so the percentage barely registers. This is what I call the floor velocity problem. The floor is not how much the market returns in percentage terms. The floor is how much money the percentage has to work with. And in the first decade, the floor is so low that your paycheck is doing more heavy lifting than the entire stock market. Let us keep watching Smart Sam's account, because the next few years do not get much more exciting, and that is the point. By the end of year 3, Smart Sam has contributed $10,800. His balance is around $11,980. The market has added about $1,179 total. Across 3 full years, that works out to roughly $390 of market growth per year, about $33 a month. He could literally find more money in his couch cushions. By the end of year 5, he has put in $18,000. His balance is roughly $21,478. His cumulative market gains are sitting around $3,478. And his annual market gain in year 5 is approximately $1,315. That is about $110 a month of market growth after 60 straight months of saving. he is beating inflation. He is technically ahead, but the number on the screen still feels small enough to fit inside a high school savings account. And here is the part that messes with people psychologically. Smart Sam has a friend who bought a rental property in year 3. The friend is posting about cash flow on social media. Another friend got into crypto in year 4 and doubled his money in 9 months before giving most of it back, but the screenshot from the peak is still pinned to his profile. Smart Sam is looking at a brokerage statement that says plus $1,315 for the year, and the entire internet is telling him he played it too safe. Nobody warns you about this part. The first decade of disciplined investing is not a highlight reel. It is a patience test disguised as a savings account, and the test gets harder every year because social media keeps showing you people who skip the line, or at least people who look like they skipped the line. The guy who bought a rental property with his parents' money and calls himself self-made. The girl who screenshots her crypto wallet on the one green day and stays quiet for the next 11 red ones. Smart Sam is playing a game that takes 30 years to score, and he is surrounded by people playing games that look like they score in 3 months. The temptation to switch games is enormous, and the only thing stopping him is a bet on math he cannot see yet. By the end of year 10, Smart Sam has contributed $36,000 of his own paychecks. His balance is approximately $51,925. The market has added roughly $15,925 over the full decade, and his annual market gain in year 10 is about $3,368, which is still less than the $3,600 he contributed himself that year. 10 full years of discipline, and the market is still not matching his own contribution rate. 10 years to basically break even with the deposit line. He is about 4 years of contributions ahead of where he would be in a regular checking account earning nothing. That is it. A decade of patience, and the scoreboard reads mildly encouraging at best. If your friend told you they had been going to the gym for 10 years, and their only visible result was that their jeans fit slightly better, you would assume they were doing something wrong. That is exactly how Smart Sam's account feels at year 10. It looks like a mistake. It is not a mistake. It is the loading phase. This is where Broke Brian texts his friend and says, "See, I told you the market was a scam," and his friend, who also quit at year 7, agrees completely. They go out for dinner and spend $85 celebrating the fact that they were right all along. Meanwhile, Smart Sam is sitting at his kitchen table running the numbers on a Tuesday night, wondering if he has been wasting his time. He has not. But the math has not told him that yet. There is a structural reason the curve feels flat for the first 10 years. Not bad luck, not a bad market, not a weak contribution rate. It is the architecture of compounding itself. Compound growth runs on the balance, not on the contribution. When the balance is small, the percentage growth is also small in absolute dollar terms. This creates 3 distinct rungs that every saver passes through. And the problem is that nobody labels these rungs, so you do not know which one you are standing on. The first rung is the starter floor. That is anything under $50,000. At this rung, your annual market gain is smaller than what a middle-class saver can contribute on their own. $300 a month is $3,600 a year. 7% on a $30,000 balance gives you about $2,100. Your own paycheck is doing more work than the entire stock market. It feels like saving because it is saving. The compounding part is barely visible to the naked eye. And this is the rung where the majority of accounts sit during the entire first decade of consistent contributions. This is also the rung where the overwhelming majority of people quit. The second rung is the inflection band. That is between $50,000 and $100,000. This is where the math starts to shift. At a $75,000 balance, 7% real return generates about $5,250 a year. That is more than the $3,600 Smart Sam puts in himself. For the first time in his entire investing life, the market is contributing more to his account than his paycheck is. The curve starts to bend. It does not feel dramatic yet. It feels like the account finally noticed he exists. But structurally, everything has changed. The market has taken over as the primary engine. The third rung is the catch-fire threshold. That is anything past $250,000. At this rung, the dollar growth per year exceeds anything a typical middle-class saver can possibly contribute. 7% on $250,000 is $17,500 a year. That is nearly 5 times the $3,600 Smart Sam puts in himself. His contribution becomes statistical noise. The account is doing the work now. This is where the curve goes vertical. This is the rung that changes everything. And this is the rung that the vast majority of savers never reach inside their working lives. I want you to think about which rung you are sitting on right now. Not where your retirement calculator says you will be in 20 years. The actual rung, the one your most recent statement puts you on today. Because the gap between where you are and where the math starts working for you is the single most important number in your financial life, and almost nobody tracks it. Now let me show you why that gap matters so much. The Federal Reserve runs the Survey of Consumer Finances, which is the most comprehensive wealth study in the country. And the numbers tell a clean story about which rung American households actually reach. The median retirement savings for households under 35 is roughly $18,800. Deep in the starter floor, for households 35 to 44, it climbs to about $45,000. Still in the starter floor, for households 45 to 54, the median sits around $115,000. They have entered the inflection band, but they spent 20 years getting there. For households 55 to 64, the peak saving window right before retirement, the median lands around $185,000. Read that again. The median lands around $185,000. At peak savings age is sitting just above the inflection band and still well below the catch-fire threshold. Their compounding never gets to do the work it was designed to do. That is not a discipline problem. That is a math problem. And it explains why so many people feel like investing does not work. It does work. They just never stayed long enough or contributed enough for the balance to reach the rung where the math actually accelerates. I find this fascinating because it means the difference between someone who retires comfortably and someone who runs out of money is often not intelligence, not income, not even investment skill. It is whether the account balance crossed a specific threshold before the working years ran out. And here is the part that makes it worse. About 28% of Americans have no retirement savings at all. They never even stepped onto the first rung. The starter floor was too far away to reach. Or life got in the way. Or nobody explained the game to them in terms that made the first decade of boredom feel worth enduring. Think about what that means collectively. More than a quarter of working Americans are going to reach 65 with a balance of zero. And the majority of the ones who did save are going to reach 65 with a balance that never crossed the line where compounding actually turns into something. The system works, but it only works if you stay in it long enough. And the system does almost nothing to make the first 10 years feel like staying is worth it. Your brokerage sends you a statement that says plus 3%, and you compare it to the guy on social media who says he made 40% on options last Tuesday. The brokerage statement is telling the truth. The social media guy is telling a story. But the story feels more exciting, so people follow the story and abandon the math. Now let us talk about the part Smart Sam never expected. The second decade. By the end of year 15, his contribution total is $54,000. His balance is about $95,000. He has climbed through the starter floor and is cracking into the inflection band. His annual market gain that year is roughly $6,278. The market is now contributing about $2,600 more per year than he contributes himself. The flip has started, and it happened so quietly that he almost did not notice. If you are watching this and feel like your money goals are stuck on a treadmill going nowhere, there is a link in the description below where you can take a quick quiz that tailors a plan to your specific situation. It takes a few minutes, asks about where you actually stand, and maps out what the path forward looks like based on your own numbers. By the end of year 20, Smart Sam's contribution total is $72,000. His balance is approximately $156,278. His annual market gain that year is roughly $10,400. The market is now adding nearly 3 times what he puts in himself. He tripled his effective growth rate over the second decade, not because the market got better, but because the balance got bigger. Same percentage. Different pile. By the end of year 25, his contribution total is $90,000. His balance is around $243,000. He is standing right at the doorstep of the catch-fire threshold. His annual market gain this year is roughly $16,250. More than 4 times his paycheck contribution. The account has taken over. He is watching the numbers climb on their own now, and the $3,600 he puts in each year is starting to feel like dropping a pebble into a river. If Smart Sam had quit at year 10, none of this happens. The first decade did the boring, invisible, thankless work of building the pile. The second decade is when the pile started paying him back. And it paid him back in a way that the first decade gave him absolutely no reason to believe was coming. This is the psychological trap of compounding. The evidence against it arrives 10 years before the evidence for it, and the overwhelming majority of people make their decision based on the first set of evidence. They see the flat line and they call it proof. They never see the vertical because they already left the room. Smart Sam did not have better information than Broke Brian. He had better patience. And patience is not a personality trait. It is a decision you make every single month when the numbers look boring and the alternative looks exciting. Now I owe you the honest counter. Because the compounding story is not a magic trick, and there are real scenarios where Smart Sam's version falls apart. If you cannot actually stay invested for 30 years, the backloaded math does not help you. If you need the money at year 12 for a down payment on a house, you walk out somewhere near the bottom of the inflection band, not the top. Compounding rewards calendar time. It punishes early exits ruthlessly. If your money sits in a high-fee, actively managed fund, the math changes. A 1% annual expense ratio sounds like a rounding error, but over 30 years it can shave roughly $65,000 off Smart Sam's final balance. Close to 20% of his ending number, gone to fees. That is not a management fee, that is a subscription service to being broke. Broke Brian's financial advisor charges 1.2% and calls it relationship-based wealth management. What it actually manages is the transfer of Broke Brian's compounding gains into the advisor's vacation fund. The catch-fire threshold still exists in a high-fee fund. It just sits further up the curve, and you reach it later, sometimes after the working career is already over. If the real return turns out to be 5% instead of 7%, the shape stays the same, but the timeline stretches. Smart Sam's year 30 balance drops from about $366,000 to roughly $251,000. The vertical still arrives. It just takes longer to get there. And the working career may run out of years before the curve catches fire. And if Smart Sam had started 15 years late, at 43 instead of 28, even with double the monthly contribution, his balance after 15 years lands well below $250,000. He never reaches the catch-fire threshold inside his working life. The math still works. The clock does not. But for the saver who starts in his 20s, holds for 3 decades, stays in a low-cost broad market index, and does not touch the money, the math holds exactly the way I just showed you. Every single number. And before anyone in the comments says, well, what about inflation eating the gains? Remember that the 7% figure I used is already the real return after inflation. I stripped inflation out at the beginning so the math would be honest. If I had used the nominal return of around 10%, Smart Sam's year 30 balance would look much bigger on paper, but mean exactly the same thing in purchasing power. I wanted the numbers clean. So let us run the final scoreboard. Year 30. Smart Sam has contributed $108,000 of his own paychecks over 3 decades. His balance is approximately $366,000. His annual market gain in year 30 alone is roughly $24,500. Say that number in your head one more time. The market gives Smart Sam more in that single year than he contributed in any 6 full years of his own saving combined. Year 30 alone delivers him more growth than the entire first decade of his saving life produced from the market. And it gets even more absurd when you look at the velocity. In year 1, the market added about $118 to his account. In year 30, the market added about $24,500. That is roughly 208 times more dollar growth in 1 year than he got in the first year. Same percentage, same rate, same broad market fund, same $300 of his own money going in every month. The only thing that changed was the size of the balance the percentage was working on. This is what people mean when they say compounding catches fire, and most of them say it without having run a single number. Now you have the numbers. Year 1 growth was barely a rounding error. Year 30 growth is approaching half of Smart Sam's annual take-home pay. He spent the same amount in year 1 and year 30. The market spent 208 times more on him in year 30 than in year 1. Broke Brian, meanwhile, is still telling people the stock market does not work. He quit at year 3 with about $12,000 in his account, withdrew it to buy a used jet ski, and considers himself street smart for never trusting Wall Street. The jet ski broke down in year 4. He does not talk about the jet ski. He also does not know that if he had left that $12,000 alone and kept adding $300 a month, he would be sitting on $250,000 right now. That is the real cost of quitting early. The $12,000 he pulled out is pocket change. The $240,000 he will never see is the actual price tag. Broke Brian paid $240,000 for a broken jet ski. Somebody should put that on a bumper sticker. Here is the rung-by-rung scoreboard one more time. From $300 a month, 7% real return for the patient saver. Year 10, 51,900 of balance, sitting in the starter floor. Annual market gain about 3,300. Year 20, 156,000 of balance, climbing through the inflection band. Annual market gain about 10,400. Year 30, 366,000 of balance, past the catch-fire threshold. Annual market gain about 24,500. Same $300 a month the whole way through. 3 completely different financial realities. The trap is not saving too little. The trap is not picking the wrong fund. The trap is reading the first 10 years as evidence and quitting before the curve does the part you actually signed up for. Compounding does not lie. It just refuses to show you year 25 during year 5. The math is backloaded by design. The people who win at this are not smarter than the people who quit. They just stayed at the table long enough for the percentage to find some real dollars to work with. So I have a question for you, and I want you to actually answer it in the comments because I am curious about the distribution in this audience. Which rung are you on right now? Not the rung you are planning to reach. Not the projection your 401k dashboard shows you in the year 2055. The actual rung your most recent statement puts you on today. The starter floor below 50,000. The inflection band between 50 and 100,000. Or past the catch-fire threshold above 250,000. Drop your rung in the comments. Tell me how many years you have been investing to get there. And if you are willing, tell me whether you have ever thought about quitting. I want to see the real numbers from real people, not the retirement calculator fantasy. Because the gap between where you sit today and where the curve starts accelerating is the number that decides everything. And if you have been investing for 7 or 8 years and wondering why it does not feel like it is working yet, this video just showed you exactly why. The curve is not broken. You are just standing on the rung before it bends.